What's up, folks? Welcome back to TacticalTortoise. My name is Trevi, and we have some big news coming out of Warhammer community today. Over the last couple weeks, I've talked about some of the rumors and speculation around the new 9th edition Tyranids Codex, and today it has been officially announced, so that's very exciting. We've talked about in previous videos some of the updated stats that we've seen in the instruction guide datasheets that have been included in some of the monster boxes. Looks like huge glow-ups to a lot of the especially big monster stat lines to kind of account for their weaknesses, potentially sans the rules for Crusher Stampede. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as we get on into this article. So 2 articles have been announced today. This is March 7th, Monday, 2022. We have one talking about the new cover art for the Tyranids Codex, and we have a beautiful rendition of the kind of classic Hive Tyrant build here on the front of the Tyranids Codex. He has his big bone sword and his lash whip, as well as a venom cannon. Games Workshop loves to put this guy right in front and center in Tyranids armies, but he has been basically unplayable garbage for as long as I can remember 40k existing. So he basically always gets overshadowed by flying Hive Tyrants or melee Hive Tyrants and stuff like that. Hopefully these new rules will have a little bit of love-in for the Venom Cannon Hive Tyrants. I think that Venom Cannon went to 4 damage, which is, I mean, it's something. We'll see how it goes. 3 shots, 4 damage is okay, but we'll see if it's better than a melee version. We do see the full cover art here. They're fighting some Iondan Eldar, which is a classic matchup, and we see a Tyrannifex in the background, as well as what looks to be a Tyrannocyte flying down. A lot of gargoyles in there, and Hormagaunts in the foreground as well. Good stuff. It's all good looking art. Now, what we really want is some inklings about rules, and we are getting that a little bit in this article. The article does talk about the return of synaptic link abilities, and I think that's an interesting clause to include, because what it says to me is that the supplemental rules for Tyranids will actually be invalidated by the release of this new codex. If the updated codex includes all of the rules from Warzone Octarius, and specifically those synaptic link abilities, as well as the High Fleet Leviathan supplement, I think that it's highly likely that those supplements will be going away and they'll be incorporated into the codex proper. Now, I doubt that you'll see a return of the entirety of that supplement in the codex. We may see some of those abilities incorporated into what High Fleet Leviathan can do. I have a sneaking suspicion that a lot of the High Fleet Leviathan capabilities will just be turned into Tyranid generic abilities, and it won't be keyed towards High Fleet Leviathan. Stuff like Alpha Leader Beast to get additional Warlord traits is certainly not going to be High Fleet Leviathan keyworded in the future. I imagine you've very powerful effects like potentially Hive Mind Imperative or something like that, or Relentless Flurry, which has been kind of a core of how the faction has been designed. I imagine that those all become generic Tyranid abilities, and maybe we see some of that stuff get reserved for High Fleet Leviathan specifically. But certainly the fact that they talk about synaptic links being in the codex itself means that I think that these supplemental rules are probably going to be made illegal. What that means for Crusher Stampede, I have no idea. I would expect Crusher Stampede to be made illegal, but I'm sure that there is a potential that it will stick around and we'll continue to be able to use the Army of Renown, but I have no idea. This is sort of an unprecedented situation since everyone else's Armies of Renown have released simultaneously with their codex, and why Tyranids got theirs separately, I don't know, but I guess we'll sort of have to wait for an official rule. Unfortunately, 40k and rules legality has always been really awkward. Like, as far as I know, nowhere does it say that previously edition codexes are no longer illegal for play and stuff like that. They're just sort of an unspoken rule within the community that only the latest version of a codex release is legal, and how that works with their new paradigm of including all of these supplemental materials is going to be interesting to find out. We do say that there's this line here that people have been parodying for a while, that in Crusade campaigns, at least, you'll be doing the opposite of any local Tau Empire players, which people have been taking to mean that the Tyranids are going to be losing a lot because Tau Empire players get to win very easily. And what they're talking about specifically are these diplomatic rules that Tau Empire have access to. So I think that's just a little bit of a hint for Crusade rules, where Tyranids will probably use a similar system to this Tau diplomatic negotiation rules, where they can benefit themselves by negotiating with sort of neutral planets between you and your opponent, whereas Tyranids will probably do something similar, but involving decimating those planets and eating all of their inhabitants. That's fun. That's some fun Crusade stuff. Definitely, unfortunately, not my cup of tea generally, but it does sound like there's going to be some fluffy stuff in here for Crusade. Now, this isn't the only announcement that we got for Tyranids today. We also got the preview of the new Tyranid Combat Patrol box, and there are some little inklings inside this reveal as well. So we do have the new Combat Patrol box. It includes 36 Termagants, so the equivalent of 3 Termagant units, as well as a unit of Tyranid Warriors and a Hive Tyrant. So I think what we're seeing here is a move away from the Nidzilla and kind of elite mid-range style of Tyranid lists, or at least a push away from those and towards these more horde-centric builds, which I'm not sure I'm personally a huge fan of, and I know that's sort of a heresy to say as a Tyranid player myself, but I much prefer actually playing the armies where, you know, your individual units are much more powerful than the armies that are kind of a Gantt carpet style. I mean, I'll play it if it's good, but I will probably enjoy it less than I would, you know, sort of a multi-tyrant Demacaron kind of build where you're being very dynamic with a few models that move a bunch of times. Just running across the table with a bunch of dudes and sort of turning your brain off feels, I don't know, a little bit less exciting. Of course, it is just a Combat Patrol box, so games, these aren't often, you know, sort of hyper competitively viable. So I don't know whether or not this is going to be an archetype that's pushed particularly, or whether it's just something that you know, the manufacturer wants to be seen as the faction identity as this horde style. But there are some other rules that have been talked about here. They talk about the Hive Tyrant, who can use telepathic abilities to support core units in your army. So, unfortunately, Tyranid's kind of getting potentially some core support. My hope is that core in the new codex functions kind of like the monster infantry divide in the current incarnation of Tyranids, where a lot of abilities, things like Swarm Leader, are targeted only to infantry units, and monsters have their own set of abilities that are targeted specifically to them. Although, you know, it talks about specifically Tyranid Warriors and Termagants having that core keyword. So hopefully it's just, you know, most of the infantry have core keyword, and then the monsters have their own abilities that they can take advantage of. I would hope that is how things end up. I think Tyranids are a really awkward place to implement the core keyword, because they don't tend to have these like sort of specialized elite units, but I don't know. It's it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But it also basically points to a lot of these psychic effects, talking about the telepathic abilities, only affecting core units, which will be, I guess, pretty interesting. They also talk about in the bottom here, they have a link to one of their fluff pieces, but they talk about at the bottom the flesh borers on Termagants being upgraded. So hopefully we'll see a big glow up to that weapon profile. I have a hard time imagining a universe where the flesh borer becomes the staple small arms weapon of the Tyranid Codex, but you know, who knows? Anything is possible these days, I guess. Maybe we see something like Single-Minded Annihilation plus Scorch Beast, you know, being rolled into a stratagem, and then that being used on Flesh Borers. Maybe Flesh Borers pump up range and AP, and suddenly, you know, these big Termagant blobs start putting out a lot of damage. I don't know. It'll be exciting to see. And as we kind of move into this spoiler season, we're going to be given a lot of previews. So we'll have a lot to talk about over the next couple weeks. I have it on good authority that the Tyranid Codex itself is going to be released somewhere around the 2nd or 3rd week of April, so we only have about a month to wait before that comes out, and in the interim, we're going to be talking about a lot of the cool mechanics that get spoiled on Warhammer Community, as well as stuff that gets leaked elsewhere in the Warhammer community. But anyway, that is all that we have to say about these announcements today. Thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know down in the comments if you are excited about the new Tyranid Codex. I'm sure I'll have a little bit more editorializing to do about it, which I'll probably release later this week. But I think it's going to be an interesting adventure for the Tyranid faction. They're kind of already in a stable and very powerful place right now, so sweeping rules changes could be a little bit awkward for them, but I'm sure I'll talk about that in a future video. Anyway, thanks for watching all the way to the end of the video. Big thanks to everyone who supports the channel over on Patreon at patreon.com/tacticaltortoise. Also, YouTube channel members, Twitch subscribers, all those folks are phenomenal. Remember to keep it classy, folks, and have happy wargaming.